The market and the public narrative around hair transplants has grown faster than science, and this gap keeps widening every year. In the world of hair loss therapeutics, untested promises often travel faster than proof, and this cycle repeats itself every few years. When a new set of hair loss sufferers, young men in their 20s, enter this arena unaware of the unfulfilled claims made to those who came before, old wine is quietly poured into new bottles. And this amnesia of the market allows half-baked breakthroughs to be packaged as revolutions. And as we reach the end of 2025 and approach 2026, this era of promises is gathering momentum. And this is not the delivery of promises. It's merely an era of possibility, but also of discernment, disagreement, and disappointment. And I'm going to soon tell you why. And to see how this pattern has played out time and again, please watch these two videos. What many patients think when they hear of hair loss cure is a head full of hair and no fear of losing it in the future. While the honest truth is much more nuanced, because in many cases the follicles are destroyed, the scalp architecture is altered, and the donor reserve remains finite. In many cases, the best hair transplants cannot replicate a youthful scalp. So the interplay between hair restoration surgically and medical regenerative adjunctive treatments is increasingly taking center stage. So today we again delve into this topic of which hair loss cures are emerging in the horizon and what you can realistically expect in the future. Is the final hair loss cure just a mile away? The market side of the story is equally compelling. The global hair loss treatment industry is reportedly today pegged at slightly over US $52 billion and projected to reach $100 billion by 2035. And this means an enormous demand and an enormous room for innovation, but also on the flip side, an enormous room for overpromise, for hype, downright falsehoods, lies, and broken promises. For decades, the story of hair loss treatment has been relatively stable. For minoxidil and for finasteride, the DHT blocker, we know the script. These treatments can slow down hair thinning, perhaps produce some regrowth in the right patient in the right stage, but they are not cures in the strict sense of the term. And in the surgical arena, hair transplantation still holds its firm position. Relocating hair from the donor zone, which is a safe zone, into the recipient area or the bald zone, give a good environment for growth of these hairs and maintain them for a long period of time through medication and salient lifestyle changes. And more importantly, prevent native thinning hair from disappearing. And now we enter 2026, and with it, the promise for new dawn in hair loss treatments. In laboratories and biotechnology firms all over the world, scientists are no longer merely tinkering with DHT suppressants, or minute topical tweaks. They are probing hair follicle biology, immune system interplay, stem cells, and signaling pathways. For example, researchers reviewing the current landscape and emerging therapies in hair loss for androgenic alopecia describe novel approaches like small molecule inhibitors, cell-based therapies, biologics, all trying to address the root rather than just the symptom of hair loss. One biotech article describes the array of treatments that may be just about to expand. Topical agents modulating DHT in a safer form, novel proteins that awaken dormant follicles, and even sugar-based gels that stimulate angiogenesis or blood vessel growth happening around follicles. While the current picture for the future of hair loss treatments is brighter than ever before, Ralph Paus, a consultant scientist from Giuliani, believes that there are still certain unaddressed questions, fundamental questions, if you may, about the science of hair growth that need to be understood. And if these are addressed in the coming years, they will go a long way in solving the problem of baldness for good once and for all. In his paper, he goes on to state One of the biggest mysteries about hair follicles is that these tiny mini organs follow an autonomous inbuilt clock that drives it through this cycle of growth, regression, resting. This clock sits in the follicle itself, but we don't know the mechanism that regulates it. If we understood how this organ actually ticks, we would target it pharmacologically. Drugs that can interfere with this inbuilt clock mechanism in the human hair follicle would be very powerful hair drugs. For many patients, this scientific news creates a dual response. After a hopeful spark or a kind of skeptical raising of eyebrows because we know the history. One of the most compelling pieces of the story is this. Emerging therapies do exist, but none has yet matured into universal, foolproof solutions for pattern hair loss in all its myriad presentations. This review article in EMJ Dermatology emphasizes that while treatments like Sami-RNA, AR68, may carry promise for female pattern alopecia, we are still shoring up evidence. And an article in Labiotech reminds us that despite the biotech push, cases of failed trials and disappointment remain. Till these emerging treatments see the light of day, I continue to tell my patients about adjuncts that I already incorporate in my treatment plan, which I trust, and which are medical therapies, chief of which are finasteride DHT blocker, sometimes dutasteride, many times taken in minimal dosage, low dose oral finasteride, microdosing, topical minoxidil, oral minoxidil, PRP when indicated, microneedling, and careful surgical planning. And these treatments remain still evidence-based and the only treatments available that have withstood the test of time and have been scientifically audited and clinically tested. Patients when they walk into the clinic are not well researched, for they have stars in their eyes when seeking medical treatment because hopelessness has set in. And they are, at this moment of time, a very vulnerable lot, ready to accept any tall claim that gives them an iota of hope. For they believe that science cannot let them down with the expectation of a thick set of hair on the head. But when you, as an ethical doctor, start to water down their unrealistic expectations by carefully calibrating what can be delivered and what can be expected from a hair transplant or hair loss treatment, these patients hate it. Ethical science and experience-based truthful conversation is a lot harder than the typical book your hair transplant pitch that most clinics rely upon. For it takes time, it takes honesty, and it takes, above all, a lot of courage to tell the hair loss patient the truth when you are running a hair loss treatment practice and have bills to pay. Patients love to know about emerging technologies, emerging treatments on the horizon, and those that they can avail right now. For many of them are biased against traditional treatments that have withstood the test of time. And you know what I'm talking about. So though I rely chiefly on these tested treatments, I tell them about new emerging technologies, molecules such as PP405, the link to which is above, a molecule which promises to reawaken dormant follicles, and other smaller molecules that may soon be part of my practice. According to publicly available information, PP405 in phase 2 trials demonstrated a 20% increase in hair density in about 30% of men with advanced baldness. But crucially, only when the follicles were still present, not in slick baldness. And then the autoimmune hair loss field, alopecia areata, has seen some more immediate breakthroughs like JAK inhibitors and new immune modulators. But I continue to emphasize to the patients that though these treatments may in future alter the algorithm of treatment of when to do surgery versus when to treat medically or wait for the newer regenerative treatments to appear, but we are not yet there. That stop is still 100 miles away. Until then, the patient may ask, "Doctor, what about the promises of no scarring, full regrowth, 100% guarantee, hair cloning?" And I reply, these are exciting news, claims by many clinics, but they are still in the speculative domain. Many labs the world over are working on stem cell approaches, but translating these into safe, scalable human therapies is not a trivial affair. I still hold my own and affirm that surgical hair restoration remains a robust, effective choice for appropriate candidates at this moment of time, and it is still an investment into years of happiness, not a commodity. I emphasize that emerging treatments may offer better regrowth for early stages of baldness, but for advanced baldness with donor area exhaustion, limited donor area, and scarred follicles, surgery still remains indispensable. Some patients nod, others are relieved, but many are skeptical. because they believe in science. Science that keeps letting them down in the field of hair loss treatment. And so the broader story unfolds. In the field of hair restoration 2026 and beyond, we stand at a pivot point. The stable foundation remains: diagnosis, careful selection of cases, surgical hair restoration through FUE, DHX technique, medical maintenance therapies, and layered over this foundation is the anticipation of what is next. Increasingly, the promise era of hair loss treatment is gathering momentum. Yet it is not presently the delivery era. It is still the era of possibility, but also of discernment, disagreement, and dejection. Today, the challenge for medical clinics is to manage the narrative, to harness emerging science without being seduced by wishful marketing, to preserve donor hair while being ready to adopt tomorrow's therapies whenever they are ready, to treat hair loss not just as a cosmetic procedure, but as an element of self-image, of confidence, and improving the quality of life. So this is the current story of hair loss treatment in 2025 and 2026, anchored in robust, tried and tested technologies, stirred by the promises of next-gen therapies, yet paced by realism, by ethics, by the understanding that in many cases, hair restoration is more marathon than sprint. For those who delay, the cost may be more than just hair lost. It may be years of confidence, of seeing yourself differently in the mirror every day. On the other hand, for those who proceed with clarity and partnership, the investment is not just in follicles, but in years of happiness. Thank you for watching. If you want further information, if you want an assessment of your hair loss pattern, do drop a comment in the comment section below or WhatsApp me at the numbers given above, and we'll do an assessment for free. Have a nice day and God bless you.